Emily had 72 hours to save her home. 72 hours before Victor Sinclair came knocking again, demanding the money she didn't have, threatening to take everything she had worked so hard to build. She should have walked faster. She should have kept her head down, her eyes forward, her mind focused on the problems waiting for her at home. But then, she saw the old woman. She was lying in a narrow alley between two buildings, half hidden by garbage bags and cardboard boxes. The rain was coming down hard, turning the streets into rivers, and the woman was not moving. Emily stopped. Every instinct told her to keep walking. She was exhausted from a double shift at the hospital. She was soaked to the bone. She had a 6-year-old daughter waiting for her at home, probably already worried because Mom was late again. But the woman was not moving, and there was blood on her face. Emily cursed under her breath and turned into the alley. "Madam?" She knelt down beside the woman, her nurse's training taking over. "Madam, can you hear me?" The woman's eyes fluttered open. They were the most unusual color Emily had ever seen. Green, but not ordinary green. Emerald green, bright and deep, like looking into a gemstone. "Help," the woman whispered. "Please." Emily did not hesitate. She pulled out her phone to call an ambulance, but the woman's hand closed around her wrist with surprising strength. "No hospitals," she said. "Please, no authorities. They will find me." Emily frowned. "Who will find you?" The woman did not answer. Her eyes were glazing over, her grip loosening. Emily made a decision. It was probably a stupid decision, definitely an inconvenient one, but she had never been able to walk away from someone who needed help. "Can you stand?" she asked. "I live a couple of blocks from here. I can clean your wounds, give you somewhere dry to rest." The woman looked at her with those strange emerald eyes. Something flickered in their depths. Surprise, maybe, or something else. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "You do not know me." "Because you need help," Emily said simply. "And I am a nurse. It is what I do." She helped the woman to her feet. She was lighter than Emily expected, almost fragile, though there was something about her that suggested hidden strength. Together, they stumbled through the rain toward Emily's small apartment. Emily's home was nothing special, a 2-bedroom unit in a building that had seen better days. The walls needed painting, the furniture was second-hand, the heating worked when it felt like it, which was not often, but it was clean, it was warm, relatively speaking, and it was home. "Mom!" Lily came running the moment Emily opened the door. She was 6 years old, all dark curls and bright eyes, wearing pajamas covered in cartoon dragons. "You are late," Lily said accusingly. Then her eyes widened as she noticed the stranger leaning on her mother. "Who is that?" "This is, Emily realized she did not know the woman's name. "A friend. She got hurt in the rain. We're going to help her feel better, okay?" Lily nodded seriously. "Like when you help people at the hospital." Exactly like that. Emily guided the woman to the worn couch and eased her down. Now that they were in the light, she could see the injuries more clearly. A cut on the forehead, still bleeding sluggishly, bruises on her arms and face. Nothing life-threatening, but painful. "What happened to you?" Emily asked as she fetched her first aid kit. The woman was quiet for a moment. "I was attacked," she said finally. Robbed. They took everything. My bag, my phone, my identification. Did you see who did it? No. They came from behind. Emily nodded, cleaning the wound with practiced efficiency. The woman barely flinched, which was unusual. Most people reacted to the sting of antiseptic. What is your name? Emily asked. Another pause. Esmeralda, the woman said. You may call me Esmeralda. I am Emily, and this is Lily. She glanced at her daughter, who was watching from a safe distance with wide, curious eyes. Lily waved shyly. Hi, Miss Esmeralda. Your eyes are really pretty. They look like the jewels in my storybooks. Something shifted in Esmeralda's expression, a softening that Emily had not expected. Thank you, child, Esmeralda said. You are very kind, like your mother. Emily finished bandaging the wound and sat back. You should rest. I will make you something to eat. No, Esmeralda protested weakly. I cannot impose. You have done enough. Adui, you are hurt and you have nowhere to go, Emily said firmly. You are staying, at least until the rain stops and you feel better. Esmeralda looked at her with those emerald eyes. Emily had the strangest feeling that she was being evaluated, tested, somehow. You are very generous, Esmeralda said quietly. Do you often bring strangers into your home? When they need help, Emily said. Yes. Even when you cannot afford to? Emily stiffened slightly. How had the old woman known? Was it that obvious? The poverty they lived in? We manage, she said carefully. Esmeralda did not push further. She simply nodded and closed her eyes. Thank you. Emily, she whispered. More than you know. Emily made chicken noodle soup from the last of the vegetables in the fridge. It was not much, but it was hot and filling. She gave the largest portion to Esmeralda and Lily, keeping only a small bowl for herself. She was used to going hungry. It was just part of life now, after dinner. Lily insisted on showing the guest her room. Emily heard her daughter chattering away about her drawings, her stuffed animals, her dreams of becoming a doctor like Mom. Emily used the quiet moment to check her bank account. The numbers glared back at her, red and accusing, negative balance. The payment to Victor was due in 3 days. She had no idea where the money would come from. Her father had left her these debts. He had spent everything he had, and more. Trying to save his own mother from cancer, he had borrowed from the wrong people, made deals he should not have made. And when he died, those debts had fallen to Emily. She had been paying them off for 5 years. 5 years of double shifts and skipped meals and worn-out shoes held together with tape. And now Victor Sinclair was tired of waiting. Miss Emily? Emily quickly closed the banking app and turned to find Esmeralda standing in the doorway. The old woman looked better than she had an hour ago. Some color had returned to her cheeks. You should be resting, Emily said. I have rested enough. Esmeralda moved to sit beside her. I could not help but notice that you gave me most of the soup and your blanket, and yet you kept nothing for yourself. Emily shrugged. You needed it more. Did I? Esmeralda's eyes were sharp, knowing. Or do you simply give to others what you deny yourself? I've only known you a few hours, Emily Carter, but I can already tell you're the kind of person who puts everyone else first. Emily didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to being seen like that, being noticed. You're in trouble, Esmeralda continued. Financial trouble. I saw the papers on your table, the overdue notices. Emily felt her face flush with embarrassment. It's fine. I'll figure it out. Will you? I always do. Esmeralda was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and touched Emily's hand. Her fingers were warm, almost hot, and Emily felt a strange tingling sensation. Some debts cannot be repaid with money, Esmeralda said softly. Some can only be repaid with kindness. Emily didn't understand what she meant. But before she could ask, Lily came bouncing back into the room. Mom, Miss Esmeralda needs to see my dragon drawings. She loves dragons, she told me. Did she now? Emily looked at the old woman with amusement. I do, Esmeralda said. Dragons have always been close to my heart. Lily grabbed Esmeralda's hand and tugged her toward the bedroom. Come on, I'll show you my favorite one. He's silver and green, just like your eyes. Emily watched them go, something warm blooming in her chest. Lily hadn't been this happy in a long time. Not since the stress of the debts and the constant worry had started to weigh on their small family. Maybe helping Esmeralda had been the right choice after all. Even if it cost them food they couldn't spare and blankets they needed, some things were more important than money. The next morning, Emily woke to the smell of cooking. She stumbled out of bed, confused and disoriented. She never slept this late. She couldn't afford to sleep late. But when she reached the kitchen, she found Esmeralda standing at the stove, flipping pancakes. Good morning, the old woman said cheerfully, Zendo. I hope you don't mind. I found some ingredients and thought I would repay your hospitality. Emily stared at the stack of golden pancakes. Where did you get the ingredients? There was more in your cabinets than you realized. Esmeralda smiled mysteriously. I have a talent for making much out of little. Lily was already at the table, her eyes huge as she watched Esmeralda work. Miss Esmeralda makes the best pancakes, Mom, she announced. Even better than the ones at the diner. Emily sat down slowly. The pancakes did look amazing. Fluffy and golden, with some kind of fruit topping that she definitely didn't have in her kitchen. How are you feeling? Emily asked. Your wounds? Much better. Esmeralda set a plate in front of her. Your care last night made all the difference. You should still rest. Head injuries can be deceptive. I will rest, Esmeralda promised. But first, let me do this small thing. It's the least I can offer. Emily took a bite of the pancake and nearly moaned. It was the best thing she had tasted in months, maybe years. Lily was right. These were incredible. Where did you learn to cook like this? Emily asked. Esmeralda's eyes twinkled. I've had many years to practice. They ate together. The three of them, in a silence that felt comfortable rather than awkward. For a moment, Emily could almost forget about the debts and the deadline and the fear that lurked at the edges of her mind. For a moment, she could just enjoy breakfast with her daughter and this strange old woman who had stumbled into their lives. Do you have family? Lily asked suddenly, her mouth full of pancake. Someone who is looking for you? Esmeralda's expression flickered. Yes, she said quietly. I have family. They are probably very worried about me. Then we should call them, Emily said. Let them know you are safe. I cannot. Not yet. Esmeralda looked down at her plate. It's complicated. Emily didn't push. Everyone had their secrets, their reasons for hiding. You can stay as long as you need, she said instead, until you figure things out. Esmeralda looked up at her. Those emerald eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. You continue to surprise me, Emily Carter. Most people in your situation wouldn't be so generous. Most people don't know what it's like to need help and have no one offer it, Emily shrugged. I do. So I try to be the person I wish someone had been for me. Esmeralda reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're a rare soul, she said. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, a storm was brewing of a different kind. Lord Damien Stormscale stood in the great hall of his palace, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Around him, guards and advisors scrambled, their faces pale with fear. What do you mean you can't find her? Damien's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. My lord, the captain of the guard stammered. We have searched everywhere. The Lady Esmeralda's trail ends at the human city. After that, nothing. Nothing, Damien repeated. My grandmother, the most beloved member of the Stormscale dynasty, disappears without a trace, and you tell me nothing? The captain flinched. We are doing everything we can, my lord. Damien closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Fire flickered at the edges of his vision. Scales rippled across his skin before he forced them down. His grandmother had wanted to explore the human world. She had been doing it for centuries, slipping away from the palace to walk among mortals, to see how they lived. She found them fascinating. Damien had always worried. The human world was dangerous, especially for dragons traveling alone. There were hunters, there were enemies, there were those who would pay dearly for the capture of a royal dragon. And now his grandmother was missing. Find her, Damien said. Use every resource we have. Contact our allies. Offer rewards. I don't care what it costs. Find her. The captain bowed and hurried away. Damien stood alone in the great hall, his heart heavy with fear. His grandmother was the last connection to his parents, both killed in the Dragon Wars before he was old enough to remember them. She had raised him, taught him, loved him when he was unlovable. If anything had happened to her, he pushed the thought away. She was alive. She had to be alive. And when he found whoever had hurt her, he would make them pay. Back in Emily's apartment, 3 days passed. 3 days of Esmeralda eating meals with them, telling stories to Lily, watching Emily come and go from her shifts at the hospital. 3 days of quiet observation, gentle conversation, and a growing warmth between them. Lily adored her. She called her Granny Esme now, and Esmeralda didn't seem to mind. The old woman would sit for hours, listening to Lily's chatter, looking at her drawings, telling her tales of dragons and magic that seemed almost too real. She's got quite the imagination, Emily said one evening, after Lily had finally drifted off to sleep. The stories she tells, they're so detailed. All the best stories have some truth in them, Victor Sinclair said enigmatically, a knowing twinkle in his eye. Emily shook her head with a smile. She had really grown fond of the old man. There was something about him, something calm, wise, and reassuring. Having him in the apartment made the small space feel warmer, safer, a true home. But today was the last day before the deadline, the day everything would come crashing down. Tomorrow, some guy from the bank would come. And Emily still didn't have the money, not even close. She had tried everything. Double shifts at the hospital, selling off anything of value, things she really couldn't afford to part with. Even swallowing her pride and asking for help from friends and family, a humbling, painful experience. Nothing had worked. Absolutely nothing. You seem troubled, Emily, Victor observed gently, his gaze piercing. Tomorrow's the deadline, Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. For the debt, the home equity loan. The man who's coming to collect? Some tough guy. Will you know about that? Emily asked, surprised. I hear things. Victor's expression was unreadable, a slight shadow passing over his face. He's coming tomorrow. Yes, Emily's voice cracked with emotion. And I don't have the money. I don't know what he'll do. I'm scared. Victor was silent for a long moment, almost lost in thought. Then he said, Tell me about this debt. How did it all start? And so Emily told him everything about her father and her mom, and the cancer that took her despite their best efforts, about the predatory loan from the bank, the interest that kept growing like a weed, and the payments that never seemed to make a dent in the principal. It felt like she was drowning. When she finished, Victor's eyes were hard, filled with something akin to anger. This loan company, he said, his voice low and dangerous. They're not legitimate lenders. No, Emily laughed bitterly, a hollow, empty sound. They're sharks, predators. They prey on people who are desperate, vulnerable. And the authorities, the police, they do nothing? Victor asked. Incredulous, they don't care about people like us. We're invisible to them. Just another statistic. Victor reached out and touched Emily's face. A gentle touch, almost grandfatherly, full of compassion. You are not invisible, he said firmly. Not to me. Emily felt tears well up in her eyes. She blinked them back, fighting for composure. I don't know what to do, she whispered, her voice trembling. If I can't pay, they might take Lily. The guy threatened. He said he'd find a way to take her from me. He knows I'm a single mom, that she's all I have. Victor's expression went ice cold. His eyes seemed to glow for just a moment, a flash of emerald fire that Emily almost missed. No one, he said quietly, each word laced with steel, will take your daughter from you, not while I'm around. You can't stop them, Emily argued, shaking her head. They have connections, power, influence. Victor smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. It was the smile of someone who knew secrets, someone who held cards that would shake the world. We shall see, he said. His voice filled with an unsettling confidence. Emily didn't understand what he meant. But somehow, just hearing those words, just seeing the conviction in his eyes, made her feel slightly less afraid. A tiny sliver of hope in the darkness. The next morning, Lily woke up with a nasty cold, a hacking cough that worried Emily sick. Emily gave her the last of the children's cold medicine and tucked her back into bed. She was supposed to work today, but there was no way she could leave Lily alone when she was sick. It just wasn't possible. And the loan officer was coming. I'll watch her, Victor offered immediately. You go to work. She'll be safe with me. I'll make her some chicken soup. Emily hesitated. She trusted Victor. She realized with a start. After only a few days, she trusted this strange old man more than she had trusted anyone in years, maybe even more than she trusted her own family. But leaving Lily when the loan officer was coming, the payment isn't due until 5 o'clock, Victor said, seeming to read her mind. You can be back before then. I promise you. Emily looked at her daughter, sleeping fitfully on the bed. Her little face flushed with fever. Then she looked at Victor, calm and steady as a rock, an anchor in the storm. Okay, she said finally, her voice tight with anxiety. I'll be back by 4. Call me if anything changes, if anyone comes around. Nothing will change, Victor promised, a glint in his eye. Now go. Your patients need you, and Lily needs you to keep your job. Emily grabbed her bag and headed for the door. At the last moment she turned back, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said sincerely, "for everything." Victor smiled. "Thank me when this is over," he said cryptically, "when the dust settles." Emily left, not knowing that everything was about to change, that her life was about to take a turn she could never have imagined. She didn't see Victor's eyes glow an unnatural green as he watched her go, a power shimmering beneath the surface. She didn't see the old man touch the ornate brooch hidden beneath his shirt, a piece of jewelry that looked like it belonged in a museum, worth more than Emily's entire apartment building, a fortune beyond her wildest dreams. And she didn't hear Victor whisper, almost to himself, his voice filled with a long suppressed yearning, "The time for hiding is almost over." Far away, in the shimmering halls of Stormscale Castle, King Damien Stormscale hadn't slept in days. His eyes were bloodshot, his usually impeccable attire rumpled and creased. The powerful Dragon King, feared by his enemies and revered by his allies, looked like a man on the verge of collapse. "Your Majesty," his chief advisor said cautiously, "you must rest. You're no use to anyone if you're running on fumes." "I'll rest when my grandmother is safe," Damien snapped, his voice raw with worry. Not a moment before. Way. He stood at the panoramic window that overlooked his vast kingdom, miles and miles of dragon territory, sprawling forests, jagged mountains and winding rivers, all under his protection. He was the most powerful dragon in the Northern Realm. His word was law. His fire could melt glaciers. And he couldn't find one old woman. It had been 4 days now, 4 agonizing days since Esmeralda had slipped past her guards during one of her clandestine trips to the human world. 4 days since her trail had vanished without a trace in a nondescript city called Millbrook. "She does this, you know," his cousin Marcus tried to reassure him, though his voice sounded weak. "She disappears for days sometimes, wanders around among the humans. She always comes back. She's done it before. Not like this." Damien's voice was tight with barely suppressed fear. "She always leaves word, always lets someone know where she is. This time, there was nothing. Silence." "Perhaps she simply wanted true solitude for once," Marcus suggested, offering a weak smile. "Or perhaps something has happened to her." Damien turned from the window, and his eyes flashed with barely contained draconic fire. The raw power radiating off of him was almost palpable. "The human dragon hunters have been growing bolder. We've had 3 attacks on our people in the last month alone. 3 ambushes. Lady Esmeralda is formidable, Your Majesty," Marcus insisted weakly. "Even in her human form, she is more than a match for most human threats. She's got centuries of experience. She is 847 years old," Damien said, his voice filled with a pain he rarely allowed himself to show. "She's not what she once was." The words hung in the air, heavy with dread, a fear so profound it silenced the room. Esmeralda was his grandmother, his only family. She had raised him after his parents were slain in the Dragon Wars, had taught him everything he knew about leadership, honor, and compassion. She was the moral compass of the entire dragon realm. She had also taught him about humans, something most dragons refuse to do. "They are not all bad, you know," she used to say gently, whenever Damien expressed his ingrained distrust of the mortal world. "Some of them have hearts larger than any dragon I have ever met. You must never judge a whole species by the actions of a few. Damien had never quite believed her. His experience with humans had been limited and mostly negative. They feared dragons, they hunted dragons, they told stories of dragons as monsters and villains, vile, ungrateful wretches. Why would he think well of them? But Esmeralda loved the human world. She visited it often, walking among mortals in her unassuming human form, observing their strange customs and peculiar rituals. She found them endlessly fascinating. She said, so fleeting their lives, and yet they crammed so much living into those brief spans. They built, they loved, they created, and then they were gone. Damien had always worried about these trips. The human world was inherently dangerous for dragons, especially those who traveled alone and disguised themselves as fragile humans. And Esmeralda, for all her vast power and ancient wisdom, was not young anymore. Her strength was waning, and she was growing frail. Now his worst fears seemed to be coming true. The nightmare he had desperately tried to avoid was unfolding before his very eyes. "Your Majesty," a messenger burst into the room, breathless and sweating. "We have news." Damien was across the room in an instant, his eyes blazing with desperate hope. "What? Where is she?" We found her trail," the messenger said, swallowing hard. "She was attacked 3 nights ago, near the waterfront district of Millbrook. There was a fight. Dragon fire residue was detected." "Is she alive?" Damien asked, his voice laced with desperation. "We do not know. The trail goes cold after the fight. But there was no body, my lord. No sign that she was killed." Damien closed his eyes. That was something. Not much, but something. "Keep searching," he ordered, his voice firm and resolute. "I want every dragon we can spare looking for her. Contact our allies. Offer whatever reward is necessary." "It will be done, my lord." "And Victor." Damien's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. "Find out who attacked her. I want names. I want locations. I want them brought to me alive." His cousin nodded grimly. The perpetrators would not enjoy what awaited them. Back in Emily's apartment, Lily was having a wonderful day. Yes, she was sick. Yes, her nose was stuffy and her throat hurt. But Granny Esme was taking care of her, and Granny Esme was the best. The old woman sat by Lily's bed, telling her stories that seemed to come from another world. Tales of dragons and princesses, of magic and honor, of kingdoms hidden in mountains, and treasures guarded by fire. "Tell me another one," Lily begged, her voice raspy. "Please, Granny Esme." Odun Esmeralda smiled and smoothed the hair back from Lily's forehead. "You should rest, little one. Your mom will worry if you're not better when she returns. But your stories help me feel better." Lily gave her best puppy dog eyes. "Please?" Esmeralda laughed softly. It was a sound she had not made in a very long time. This child, this human child, had a gift for reaching past all her defenses. "Very well, one more story." Esmeralda settled back in her chair. "But this one is different. This one is true." Lily's eyes widened. "Really, truly true? Really, truly true?" Esmeralda's gaze grew distant, seeing something far away. "Once, long ago, there was a young dragon princess who lost her parents in a great war. Like in the movies? Yes, like in the movies." The princess was very sad. She thought she would never be happy again. But then she had a grandson, a little dragon boy who needed her, and taking care of him, loving him, gave her a reason to keep going. Lily listened intently, her cold forgotten. The princess raised her grandson to be a good dragon, Esmeralda continued. She taught him to be strong, but also kind, powerful, but also just. She told him that true strength was not about how much fire you could breathe, but about how many people you could protect. "Is the grandson a king now?" Lily asked, her eyes full of wonder. "He is." Esmeralda's eyes shimmered with pride. "The greatest king the North has ever known, and the princess loves him more than all the treasure in the world." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Granny Esme?" "Yes, child." "Do you have a grandson?" Esmeralda's heart clenched. She had not expected the question, though she should have. Children were perceptive in ways adults often forgot. "Yes," she said softly, "I do." "Do you love him like the princess loves hers? More than anything?" Lily reached out and took Esmeralda's hand. "He is lucky," she said, "to have a granny like you." Esmeralda had to blink back tears. In 800 years, she had received countless compliments, tributes from kings and queens, poems written in her honor, monuments erected to her name. None of them had touched her like the simple words of this 6-year-old human girl. "Thank you, Lily," she whispered, "but I think I am the lucky one, to have met you and your mother." Lily grinned, then yawned hugely. "Maybe when I am better, you can introduce me to your grandson. He sounds nice." "Perhaps I will," Esmeralda said. "Perhaps I will." Lily fell asleep soon after, her small hand still clutching Esmeralda's. The old dragon watched her breathe, this innocent child who had no idea what she had stumbled into. Emily and Lily had shown Esmeralda something she had almost forgotten existed. Pure, unconditional kindness. They had nothing, these two humans. They struggled every day just to survive. And yet, they had opened their home and their hearts to a stranger without hesitation. Esmeralda had tested them in small ways. She had watched Emily give away her own food, her own warmth, her own comfort, so that Esmeralda would have more. She had seen Lily share her last cookie, her favorite toys, her precious drawings, without being asked. In 8 centuries of life, Esmeralda had met very few people like this, dragon or human. And now these good people were in danger, not from Esmeralda's enemies, but from their own kind, from a human predator named Victor who preyed on the vulnerable. Esmeralda had seen the papers, heard the phone calls, watched the fear in Emily's eyes grow as the deadline approached. She could solve this problem with a single word, a single gesture. She was Lady Esmeralda Stormscale, grandmother of the Dragon King. She had more wealth than entire human nations. She could buy this building, this block, this entire city, without noticing the expense. But she had not revealed herself. Not yet. Because she wanted to see. She wanted to see what Emily would do when pushed to the wall, how she would react when everything fell apart, whether her kindness would survive the test of true adversity. It was not a cruel test. Esmeralda would never let real harm come to this family. But she needed to know, before she brought Emily and Lily into the dragon world, that they were truly what they seemed to be. Too many times she had been fooled by people who showed one face while hiding another. But Emily was not hiding anything. Day after day, crisis after crisis, she remained exactly who she appeared to be. A good woman who helped others because it was the right thing to do, not because she expected reward, not because she wanted recognition, simply because she could not walk away from someone in need. The deadline was today. Victor would come this afternoon. And when he did, Esmeralda would finally reveal herself. Not to save Emily from having to fight, but to fight beside her, because that was what family did. At the hospital, Emily was having the shift from hell. 2 code blues in the first hour. A multi-car accident that filled the ER with screaming patients. A child with a fever so high she had to be packed in ice. And through it all, Emily could not stop thinking about Lily, alone at home with Esmeralda. And the deadline ticking closer. Her supervisor found her in the supply closet, stealing a moment to check her phone. "Torres!" The woman's voice was not unkind. "You look like death warmed over. Just a rough night." Emily shoved the phone in her pocket. "I am fine. You are not fine." The supervisor stepped into the closet and closed the door. "I've been watching you for 3 years, Emily. You are the best nurse I have ever worked with. You never complain, never call in sick, never ask for anything. But something is wrong." Emily felt her eyes burn. She couldn't break down. Not here, not now. "It's just some personal stuff," she managed to say. "I'll handle it." The supervisor studied her for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is your bonus," she said. "You weren't supposed to get it until Christmas, but I'm giving it to you early." "What?" "I didn't know there was a bonus." "There isn't." Not officially. The supervisor pressed the envelope into Emily's hand. "This is from the staff. We took up a collection. We know things have been hard for you." Emily opened the envelope. Inside was cash. More cash than she had seen in a long time. "We're a family here," the supervisor said. "We take care of our own." Emily couldn't speak. The tears she had been holding back spilled over. The supervisor pulled her into a hug. "You're going to be okay. Torres, whatever it is, you're going to get through it." Emily wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe that this money, combined with everything she had saved, would be enough to satisfy Victor. But she knew it wouldn't be. The debt was too large. The interest had grown too high. Nothing she did would ever be enough. Still, she squared her shoulders and wiped her eyes. She would fight. She would always fight. For Lily. The shift ended at 3. Emily grabbed her things and ran for the bus, the envelope of money clutched tightly in her hand. She was almost home when she saw the black SUV parked outside her building. Victor. He was early. Emily's heart started pounding as she raced up the stairs. She could hear voices from inside the apartment. Loud voices, angry voices. She threw opened the door and found exactly what she had feared. Victor Sinclair stood in the middle of her living room, 2 of his goons flanking him. He was a big man, thick with muscle gone to fat, his face cruel even when he smiled, and he was smiling now. "Ah, there she is." Victor spread his hands like he was greeting an old friend. "Emily, Emily, Emily. I was just having a lovely chat with your houseguest." Esmeralda sat on the couch, her expression calm. Lily was nowhere to be seen. In her room, hopefully. "Get out of my house." Emily's voice shook, but she did not back down. Now. Victor shook his head. "Is that any way to talk to someone you owe money to? They come all this way, take time out of my busy schedule, and this is the welcome I get. The payment isn't due until 5. I decided to collect early." Victor dropped the friendly facade. His eyes went cold. "I'm tired of waiting, Emily. Tired of your excuses, your promises, your pathetic little payments that don't even cover the interest. I have more." Emily held out the envelope. "Please, just give me more time." Victor took the envelope, counted the cash. and laughed. This is it. This is what 3 years of work gets you? He threw the money in her face. It's not enough. It will never be enough. Emily flinched as the bills scattered across the floor. Please, she said, I'll get more. I'll work extra shifts. I'll do whatever it takes. Yes, you will. Victor stepped closer, and Emily smelled alcohol on his breath. You see, Emily, I've been thinking. Your father borrowed a lot of money from me, a lot more than you can ever repay, so I've decided to accept a different form of payment. His eyes slid toward Lily's bedroom door. No! The word tore out of Emily like a scream. No, you stay away from her. She's young, healthy. Victor smiled, and it was the ugliest thing Emily had ever seen. There are people who would pay good money for a child like that, enough to cover your debt, maybe with some left over. Emily didn't think. She didn't plan. She just moved. She threw herself between Victor and the bedroom door, arms spread wide, body blocking the path to her daughter. You will not touch her, she said, and her voice was no longer shaking. It was steel. You will have to kill me first. Victor laughed. That can be arranged. His goons started forward, and then Esmeralda stood up. She moved slowly, deliberately. An old woman rising from a couch, nothing threatening about it, except for her eyes. Her eyes were glowing, not reflecting the light, not shining with tears, glowing, bright, emerald green, like twin flames burning in her skull. I think, Esmeralda said, and her voice had changed. It was deeper now, older, full of power that made the walls tremble. That you should reconsider your position. Victor froze. His goons froze. Everyone in the room seemed to stop breathing. What the hell? Victor said slowly. What is wrong with your eyes, old woman? Nothing is wrong with my eyes. Esmeralda smiled, and her teeth seemed sharper than they had been a moment ago. There is quite a lot wrong with you. However, she took a step forward. As she moved, something shifted under her skin. Scales rippled across her face and neck, silver and iridescent, catching the light like precious metal. Victor stumbled backward. What are you? I am someone you should not have threatened. Esmeralda's voice echoed with ancient power. I am someone whose family you should never have endangered. More scales appeared on her hands, her fingers elongated, nails becoming claws. Her silver hair seemed to float around her head, defying gravity, moving in a wind that did not exist. And still, those emerald eyes burned. Emily watched, frozen, in shock and awe. Part of her wanted to scream, part of her wanted to run, but a larger part simply watched, mesmerized, as the gentle old woman she had taken in transformed into something else entirely, something magnificent, something terrifying, something utterly inhuman. You thought you could come into this home, Esmeralda continued, her voice growing louder. You thought you could threaten this woman who showed me kindness. You thought you could put your hands on a child. Victor was backing toward the door, his goons already running. His face had gone white, his eyes huge with terror. Please, he whimpered. Please, I didn't know. I didn't mean. You knew exactly what you meant. Esmeralda raised one clawed hand. You have built your life on preying on the vulnerable, on taking from those who have nothing, on using fear and violence to control the weak. A ball of green fire materialized in her palm. It crackled and hissed, casting strange shadows across the room. Emily Torres is not weak, Esmeralda said. She is the strongest person I have met in centuries, and she is under my protection now. Victor made a sound that was halfway between a sob and a scream. He turned and ran, tripping over his own feet in his desperation to escape. His goons were already gone, their footsteps thundering down the stairs. Esmeralda didn't chase after them. She just stood there, fire in her hand, scales shimmering on her skin, her eyes burning green until the sounds of their escape faded completely away. Then, slowly, she let the fire die down. The scales retreated. Her eyes dimmed back to their normal, emerald hue, and she shrunk back down to the gentle old woman Emily had first met in the rain. She turned to face Emily. "I believe," she said quietly, "that I owe you an explanation." Emily couldn't speak. Her legs gave way, and she slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor. "You are," she finally managed. "You're a dragon, yes. A real dragon, yes. Dragons are real." Esmeralda's lips twitched slightly. "We are, though we've worked very hard over the centuries to make humans believe otherwise." Emily put her head in her hands. She was shaking. Her whole body was shaking. "I am sorry," Esmeralda said gently. She crossed the room and knelt beside Emily. "I didn't mean to frighten you. I only wanted to protect you. Protect me." Emily looked up, and there were tears in her eyes. "You've been lying to me since the moment we met." "Not lying, omitting. There is a difference. Not much of one." Esmeralda was quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. "You're right. I should have told you sooner, but I needed to be sure." "Sure of what?" "Sure of who you are." Esmeralda reached out and took Emily's hands. Her touch was warm, comforting, just as it always had been. "I've lived for 847 years, Emily. In that time, I've met many humans. Some were kind, some were cruel. Many pretended to be one thing, while being another." Emily said nothing, but she didn't pull her hands away. "Agreed. When I was attacked," Esmeralda continued, "I was weak, vulnerable, unable to defend myself. Any human who found me could have robbed me, killed me, sold me to my enemies. Instead, you found me, and you helped me, without knowing who I was, without expecting anything in return." Emily's throat tightened. Anyone would have helped. No, they wouldn't. Esmeralda's voice was firm. "I know this because I've seen it. I've watched humans walk past those in need 1,000 times. I've seen them turn their backs on suffering, on pain, on death. But not you. You stopped. You helped. You gave me everything you had." "I couldn't just leave you there," Emily whispered. "Exactly," Esmeralda smiled, and it was the same warm smile she had been giving Emily for days. "You couldn't. That's who you are. Emily Torres. A person who can't walk away from someone in need." "So what now?" Emily asked. "What happens now?" "That I know." Before Esmeralda could answer, Lily's voice came from the bedroom doorway. "Mom, is everything okay? I heard loud noises." Emily scrambled to her feet. "Lily, honey, stay in your room." But Lily had already seen Esmeralda, and unlike her mother, she wasn't afraid. "Granny Esme!" Lily ran across the room and threw her arms around the old woman. "Are you okay? Who were those mean men?" Esmeralda hugged her back, her expression softening. "I'm fine, little one. The mean men are gone. They won't be coming back." Lily looked up at her with those innocent, trusting eyes. "Were you a dragon just now? I saw green light under the door." Emily's heart stopped. Esmeralda hesitated only a moment. Then she nodded. "Yes," she said. I am." Lily's face lit up. "I knew it. I knew you were special. Can you breathe fire? Do you have wings? Can you fly?" Esmeralda laughed, a genuine sound of joy. "Yes, to all three. Would you like to see my wings sometime?" "Yes, yes, yes!" Lily bounced on her heels. "Can we go flying, please, please, please?" "Lily," Emily's voice was strained. This is a lot we need to talk about." But Lily was already tugging at Esmeralda's hand. "I have so many questions. How old are you really? Where do you live? Is your grandson a dragon, too? Is he a king? Is he nice? Can I meet him?" Esmeralda met Emily's eyes over Lily's head. There was a question in her gaze, a silent request for permission. Emily didn't know what to do. Her whole world had just been turned upside down. Everything she thought she knew about reality had been shattered in the space of 5 minutes. But Lily was happy. Lily was safe. And Esmeralda, dragon or not, had protected them when no one else would. Emily nodded slowly. Esmeralda's smile widened. She gathered Lily onto her lap and began to answer her questions. Yes, she was very old. Yes, she lived in a palace. Yes, her grandson was a dragon and a king. Yes, he was nice, though he could be very scary to bad people. Emily listened, trying to process, trying to understand. Dragons were real. She had saved a dragon. The dragon was ancient royalty. The dragon had a grandson who was a king. What did any of this mean? For her life? For Lily's life? She didn't know. But for the first time, in a very long time, she wasn't afraid of finding out. Damien felt it the moment his grandmother revealed herself. He was in his study, reviewing reports from the search teams, when a wave of familiar power washed over him. It was like a light being turned on in the darkness, a beacon cutting through the void. "Grandmother." He was on his feet before he knew he was moving. "She's alive," he breathed. "She's alive," and she used her power. His guards came running at his shout. "My lord, she has revealed herself. I can feel her." Damien's hands were shaking with relief. "She's in the human city. Millbrook. I can pinpoint her location. We'll prepare an escort immediately." "No, not an escort." Damien's eyes blazed. "I'm going myself, now." "My lord, is that wise? The human world is dangerous. My grandmother is in the human world. Nothing is going to keep me from her." The guard bowed and stepped aside. Damien didn't wait for carriages or ceremony. He transformed mid-stride, his human form giving way to his dragon one. Massive silver wings burst from his back. Scales rippled across his body, hard as steel, gleaming like polished metal. His eyes burned emerald green, the same shade as his grandmother's. He launched himself into the sky and flew. The journey that would have taken hours by human transportation took him less than 30 minutes. He pushed himself to his limits, flying faster than he had ever flown. Driven by desperate relief and lingering fear, she was alive, But was she hurt? Was she in danger? Why had she revealed herself? He landed on the roof of a building, near her location, then transformed back to human form. He had to be careful here. Humans couldn't see a full-size dragon in the middle of their city. Well, they could, but it would cause problems. In his human form, Damien was still imposing. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair and emerald eyes, scales traced along his jaw and down his neck. Impossible to hide completely. His left hand was fully human. His right hand was clawed and scaled, a permanent reminder of a childhood injury that had never healed properly. He wore regular clothes, the kind his grandmother had given him for trips to the human world. A black coat, dark pants, boots that hid his taloned feet. He thought, reasonably normal for a human. Anyway, he followed the faint trace of his grandmother's power to a modest apartment building, the kind of place where struggling folks lived, where people barely scraped by. What was his grandmother doing here? He took the stairs 3 at a time and stopped outside a door on the 3rd floor. He could hear voices inside. His grandmother's voice, telling some kind of story. A child's voice, asking questions. And another voice, quieter, belonging to a woman he didn't recognize. Damien knocked. The voices stopped. Footsteps approached. The door opened. Damien found himself looking at a young woman, maybe 30 years old, with tired eyes and brown hair pulled back from a face that showed the marks of constant worry. She was petite, barely reaching his shoulder. She looked exhausted, overwhelmed, and slightly terrified. She was also, he noticed despite himself, quite beautiful. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice wary. Before Damien could answer, a small tornado of curly hair and excitement came barreling toward the door. "Ooh!" Lily skidded to a stop and stared up at him with huge eyes. "Are you the king? Granny Esme said you might come. You are so tall. Why is your hand like that? Are you going to take Granny Esme away?" Damien blinked. He had faced armies. He had battled rivals for his throne. He had stared down enemies who wanted him dead. He had never been so immediately disarmed. "Lily," the woman put a hand on the child's shoulder. "Don't be rude. I'm not being rude. I'm being curious. There's a difference." Lily turned back to Damien. "Are you a dragon king? Can you breathe fire? Do you have a crown? Is it sparkly?" Damien found his voice. Yes, and somewhat." "Cool." Lily grabbed his hand, his scaled hand, without hesitation or fear, and tugged him into the apartment. "Come on, Granny Esme is in the living room. She's telling me about when she was young. Did you know she once fought a sea monster?" Damien allowed himself to be pulled into the small, shabby apartment. He was so surprised by this fearless child that he didn't even think to resist. And then he saw his grandmother. She was sitting on a worn couch, a cup of tea in her hands, looking more relaxed and content than he had seen her in years. When she saw him, her face lit up. "Damien." She set down the tea and rose to meet him. "My boy." He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. "You're alive," he said, his voice rough. "I thought I was so worried." "I know." Esmeralda hugged him back fiercely. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you. What happened? Who attacked you? Why didn't you contact me?" "It's a long story." Esmeralda pulled back and cupped his face in her hands. "But I'm safe, thanks to this family." Damien turned to look at the woman and child who had taken in his grandmother. Emily had moved to stand near Lily, her posture protective. She was looking at Damien with a mixture of awe and wariness, like she wasn't quite sure whether to bow or run. Lily, on the other hand, was already tugging at his coat. "Do you want some tea?" she asked. "Mom makes pretty good tea. Well, not really good, but pretty good. We don't have sugar, though, because sugar is expensive." Damien felt something strange happening in his chest, something warm and unfamiliar. "I would like some tea," he said. "Thank you." Lily beamed and ran off to the kitchen. Emily stayed where she was, watching him like a rabbit watching a hawk. "You're the Dragon King," she said. It wasn't a question. "I am Lord Damien Stormscale, King of the Northern Dragon Territory." He inclined his head. "And you are the woman who saved my grandmother's life. I didn't know who she was." "I know. That makes it more remarkable, not less." Emily's cheeks flushed. She didn't seem to know how to respond to that. Esmeralda touched Damien's arm. "Perhaps we should sit. There's much to discuss." They sat. It was absurd. Really. The Dragon King of the North, perched on a second-hand couch in a tiny apartment, accepting a cup of weak tea from a 6-year-old human child. But somehow, it didn't feel absurd. It felt right. Esmeralda told him everything, how she had been attacked by hunters while exploring the city, how she had fought them off but been injured in the process, how she had wandered, confused and bleeding until she collapsed in an alley, how Emily had found her. She could have walked past, Esmeralda said. She had every reason to. She was exhausted. She was worried about her own problems. She had a child waiting for her at home. Damien listened, his eyes moving between his grandmother and the woman who had saved her. "But she didn't walk past," Esmeralda continued. "She stopped. She helped. She brought me here to her home, and she cared for me. She gave me her food, her blankets, her medicine. She treated my wounds and asked for nothing in return. Any decent person would have done the same," Emily said quietly. "No." Damien's voice was soft, but certain. "They would not have. I have seen how humans treat each other, how they treat those who are different, those who are vulnerable. Decency is rarer than you think." Emily met his eyes. There was something defiant in her gaze, something that refused to accept his praise. "I'm not special," she said. "I'm just a nurse and a mom, trying to get by." "She is lying," Lily announced, returning with another cup of tea. "Mom is the most special person in the whole world. She helps everyone, even when she's tired, even when we don't have enough food. She always helps." "Lily." Emily's voice was strained. "What? It's true." Damien felt that strange warmth again. This child, this fierce little girl, reminded him of himself at that age. Proud of her mother, protective of her family, honest to a fault. "Your daughter is right," he told Emily. "What you did was extraordinary, and it will not go unrewarded." "I don't want a reward." The words came out sharp, almost angry. "I didn't help your grandmother, so you would give me things?" "I know." Damien studied her, this small, stubborn human who looked ready to fight him, even though he could destroy her entire building with a breath. "That's exactly why you deserve one." Before Emily could argue further, Esmeralda spoke. "There's more," she said. "While I was here, I saw things, learned things about this family's situation." "Grandmother." Damien's voice held a warning. "No. Damien, you need to know." Esmeralda's eyes flashed. "This woman has been tormented by a predator, a human criminal who preys on the vulnerable. He's been extorting her for years, taking money she doesn't have, threatening her child. Damien went very still. His name is Victor Sinclair, Esmeralda continued. He came here today. He threatened to take Lily as payment for a debt Emily inherited from her father. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Ice crystals began forming on the windows. He threatened the child. Damien's voice was soft, dangerous. He will not be doing so again, Esmeralda said. I made certain of that. But his operation continues. He has dozens of other victims, other families trapped in the same cycle of debt and fear. Damien stood. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. His city, in a sense. His grandmother loved this place, these people. That made them his responsibility. Find him, he said quietly. Find Victor Sinclair and everyone who works for him. I want them brought before the human authorities, with evidence of every crime they have committed. My lord, one of his guards said from the doorway. Damien hadn't even noticed them arrive. Is that wise? Involvement in human affairs. My grandmother was attacked in this city. A woman and child who saved her were threatened by human criminals. Damien turned and his eyes blazed with cold fire. I am already involved, the guard bowed. It will be done. Damien turned back to Emily. She was staring at him, with an expression he could not quite read. I am not doing this for a reward, she said again, but her voice was quieter now. I know. He crossed to stand before her. I am not doing it for a reward either. I am doing it because it's right, because my grandmother was saved by your kindness. And the least I can do is make sure you never have to fear monsters like Victor Sinclair again. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She blinked them back, but not before one escaped down. Her cheek, without thinking, Damien reached out and brushed it away with his thumb, his scaled thumb, against her soft human skin. Emily did not flinch. Thank you, she whispered. No. He let his hand fall. Thank you. The next few hours passed in a blur. More dragons arrived, guards and advisors and officials who looked deeply uncomfortable in the small human apartment. They brought food, which Lily declared the best thing she had ever eaten. They brought medical supplies, which Esmeralda did not need, but appreciated anyway. They brought news. Victor Sinclair had been found. He had been babbling incoherently about demons and monsters when the authorities picked him up. The evidence against him and his organization was already being compiled. By morning, he would be in custody, and the families he had tormented would be free. Emily listened to all of this like she was dreaming. Maybe she was dreaming. Maybe none of this was real. But then, Lily would tug at her sleeve, asking another question about dragons, and Emily would remember that, yes, this was real. This was her life now. When the chaos finally settled, Damien asked to speak with her alone. They stood on the tiny balcony of her apartment, looking out at the city lights. It was cold, but Emily barely noticed. She had too much on her mind. I want to offer you something, Damien said. I already told you I don't want... Please, he held up a hand. Let me finish, then you can refuse if that is what you wish. Emily bit her lip and nodded. My grandmother has not been this happy in a long time, Damien said. She has spent centuries traveling the human world, searching for something. I never understood what, but I think I do now. Emily waited. She was looking for people like you. He turned to face her. Good people, kind people, people who help others, not because they expect reward, but because they cannot do otherwise. Emily shook her head. There are millions of good people in the world. perhaps. But she found you, and she loves you. Both of you. Damien's eyes were soft in the dim light. I haven't seen her look at anyone the way she looks at Lily since my parents died. Emily's throat tightened. She thought of Esmeralda telling stories to Lily, holding her hand while she slept, calling her little one with such affection. I want to offer you a position, Damien continued, in my household as the official physician to the Stormscale family. Emily blinked. What? You are a nurse, yes? Trained in healing? Yes, but I'm not a doctor. I don't have the qualifications. You have something more valuable than qualifications. You have compassion, skill, a genuine desire to help. Damien's voice was warm. We have dragon healers, of course, but my grandmother trusts you. And after watching you for 4 days, caring for her, treating her wounds, giving her medicine you couldn't afford, I trust you too. Emily did not know what to say. The position comes with housing, Damien added. In the palace, your daughter would have the finest education, access to libraries and teachers and resources you cannot imagine, and you would never have to worry about money again, ever. Emily's heart was pounding. It was too much. It was all too much. Why? She managed. Why would you do this? Because you saved my grandmother. Because you are the kind of person this world needs more of. And because... Damien paused, as if searching for the right words. Because my grandmother has decided to adopt you into our family, and I have learned not to argue with her when her mind is made up. Adopt us. In the dragon tradition, yes, she wishes to claim you and Lily as her own, to give you the protection of the Stormscale name, to make you part of our family, in truth as well as in spirit. Emily felt tears streaming down her face. She did not try to stop them. I don't understand, she whispered. We are nobody. We have nothing. Why would you want us? Because you have everything that matters. Damien stepped closer. His presence was overwhelming, his power barely contained beneath his human skin. But his voice was gentle. You have courage. You have kindness. You have a heart that gives without counting the cost. Emily looked up at him, this impossible being, this dragon king, who should have had no reason to care about a struggling single mother in a rundown apartment. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, take all the time you need. Damien reached out and took her hand, his scaled fingers wrapping around hers. But know this, Emily Torres. Whatever you decide, you and Lily will always have the protection of my house. Victor Sinclair is only the beginning. Anyone who threatens you will answer to me. Emily squeezed his hand. It felt natural. It felt right. Thank you, she said, for everything. Damien smiled. It transformed his face, making him look almost human, almost approachable. Thank you, he said, for giving my grandmother back to me. They stood there for a long moment, hands intertwined, dragon king and human nurse, gazing out at the glittering lights of the city. A city completely oblivious to the extraordinary events unfolding in that humble apartment. It was Lily, finally, who shattered the spell. The apartment door burst open, and she came sprinting onto the balcony, her little face radiating pure, unadulterated excitement. Mom, Grandma Esme says, if you say it's okay, we can go flying tomorrow, can we? Please, 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 Emily chuckled, gently wiping away the lingering tears. We'll see, sweetie. That means yes, right? Lily pivoted, her eyes, wide and brimming with hope, fixed on Victor. Does that mean yes? Victor studied the child, this fearless little girl who had welcomed a dragon king into her apartment and offered him tea without a moment's hesitation. Something deep within him, something cold, closed off, and heavily guarded, began, ever so slightly, to thaw. "I think," he said, a hint of amusement playing on his lips, "it means maybe, which is definitely better than no." Lily pondered this for a moment. "Okay, I can work with maybe." She latched onto Victor's other hand, the human one, and tugged with all her might. "Come on back inside. Grandma Esme's telling a story about the time she outsmarted a giant. You have to hear it." Victor allowed himself to be led. Again. He was beginning to suspect that Lily could lead him anywhere. He glanced back at Emily. She was smiling, really smiling, for the first time since their paths had crossed. It was a truly beautiful smile. "Come on! Mom!" Lily called impatiently. "You're gonna miss the best part!" Emily followed her daughter back inside, into the cozy warmth, the infectious laughter, and the utterly improbable reality of dragons in her modest living room. She had no idea what the future held. She didn't know if she would accept Victor's incredible offer, or if she would simply remain in her small apartment and pretend none of this had ever happened. But for the first time, in a very long time, she felt something stirring within her, something she had almost completely forgotten: hope. 3 days later, Emily reached her decision. She stood in her apartment, slowly scanning the familiar surroundings, the worn furniture, the peeling paint, and the simple life she had painstakingly built from absolutely nothing. It hadn't been a bad life. It had been hard, yes, exhausting beyond measure, and, truth be told, lonely at times. But she had made it. All on her own. She had raised Lily, entirely on her own. She had, above all else, survived. But surviving, she realized, was simply not the same as truly living, and Lily deserved so much more than mere survival. "Mom?" Lily appeared in the doorway, her trusty backpack clutched tightly in her arms. "Are we really going to live in a palace?" "If that's what you want, sweetheart." Lily's face erupted into a brilliant grin. "I want to. Can I bring Mr. Whiskers?" She proudly brandished a slightly dilapidated stuffed cat, a cherished companion since she was just a tiny baby. Emily smiled warmly. "Mr. Whiskers can definitely come along. And my dragon drawings, all of them, and the picture of Daddy." Emily's heart squeezed, just a little. Yes, Lily, and the picture of Daddy. Lily bounced over and wrapped her little arms tightly around Emily's waist. "This is going to be the best adventure ever." Emily hugged her daughter close, her voice thick with emotion. "I think you might just be right." A sharp knock at the door announced their escorts. Victor had dispatched 3 dragons, disguised in human form, all tall, impeccably dressed, and wearing somber black coats that made them look like extremely intimidating bodyguards. But their stern facades melted away, and they actually smiled when Lily enthusiastically waved at them. They carefully assisted in carrying the few boxes of belongings that Emily had chosen to bring. They were unfailingly polite and deeply respectful, treating Emily like absolute royalty, even though she was still wearing her practical, slightly rumpled nurse's uniform. The journey to the Dragon Realm was utterly unlike anything Emily could have possibly imagined. They traveled through a shimmering portal, a door of pure light, that spontaneously materialized in mid-air. On the other side lay a breathtaking world of towering mountains, lush forests, and skies so impossibly clear that they appeared to be meticulously painted. And dragons everywhere, soaring majestically through the vast expanse of the sky, gracefully landing on rugged cliffsides, lazily sunning themselves on colossal rocks. Lily pressed her face against the carriage window, her eyes wide with childlike wonder. "There are so many," she breathed, completely awestruck. "Are they? All friendly?" "Most of them are," one of the guards replied with a gentle smile. "We do have a few, shall we say, grumpy ones, but they won't bother you." The palace itself was a breathtaking masterpiece of dragon architecture, imposing towers that spiraled impossibly high into the clouds, walls that shimmered and gleamed with countless embedded gemstones, and sprawling gardens overflowing with vibrant flowers that Emily had never seen before, in colors that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. Esmeralda was patiently waiting for them at the grand entrance. "My girls!" she exclaimed, her arms outstretched in welcome. "Welcome home!" Lily instantly bolted towards her, without a moment's hesitation, flinging herself into Esmeralda's warm embrace. "Grandma Esme, we're here. This place is amazing. Can I see the treasure room? Do you have a treasure room? All the stories have treasure rooms." Esmeralda laughed. That comforting, melodic sound that Emily had grown to cherish. "We have several treasure rooms, my dear, and I promise I will show you all of them." Emily approached more cautiously, still completely overwhelmed by the sheer scale of everything. Esmeralda reached out and gently took her hand. "Are you all right, dear?" she asked softly, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "I honestly don't know," Emily admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "This is all just so much to take in." "I know." Esmeralda gently squeezed her hand. "But you don't have to figure everything out all at once. Just take it one day at a time, and always remember that you are both loved here." Emily felt tears welling up in her eyes again. She had certainly been crying an awful lot lately. "Why?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Why do you care about us so much?" Esmeralda paused for a long moment, lost in thought. Then she replied softly, "I have lived a very long time, Emily. I have witnessed empires rise and fall into ruin. I have watched countless generations come and go. I have loved and inevitably lost more people than I could possibly count." She gazed at Lily, who was already chattering away enthusiastically to one of the guards about her favorite kinds of dragons. "But I have rarely encountered someone quite like you, Emily," Esmeralda continued earnestly. "Someone who gives, without ever counting the cost. Someone who helps, without ever expecting a reward in return. In all my centuries, that kind of pure, unadulterated goodness has remained incredibly rare." Emily shook her head in disbelief. "I'm really not that good." "Oh, you are. You just don't see it yet." Esmeralda smiled knowingly. "And that, in many ways, is part of what makes you so special." Before Emily could even formulate a response, a familiar figure suddenly appeared at the top of the Grand Palace stairs. Victor descended slowly towards them, resplendent in formal dragon robes that somehow made him look even more imposing than usual. His scales shimmered in the afternoon light, a dazzling display of silver and gold. His gaze locked onto Emily's, holding it firmly. "Welcome to Stormscale Palace, Emily," he said. his voice deep and resonant. "I sincerely hope that you will both be happy here." "I truly hope so too," Emily replied softly. "Thank you for everything you've done." Victor inclined his head slightly. Then he turned his attention to Lily, who had finally noticed his arrival and come running over to greet him. "Your Majesty." Lily attempted to execute what she clearly thought was a graceful curtsy. But it ended up looking more like a slightly wobbly bounce. "Grandma Esme says there are treasure rooms. Can I see them, please?" Victor's lips twitched ever so slightly. He was trying very hard to maintain a dignified demeanor. Emily realized with amusement and utterly failing. "Perhaps later." "Lily," he said, a hint of playfulness creeping into his voice. "First, I believe that there was some discussion of flying." Lily's face positively lit up. "Really? Really, really? Really, really?" Victor glanced at Emily, a silent question in his eyes. "Is that safe?" Emily asked, a flicker of understandable concern in her voice. "I would never let anything happen to her." "Emily," Victor replied, his voice firm and resolute. "I give you my word." Emily looked at her daughter Lily, practically buzzing with excitement. At Esmeralda, smiling warmly. At Victor, waiting for permission with a patience she wouldn't have expected from a king. "Okay," she said, "but be careful." "Always," Victor replied. He transformed right there on the palace steps. His human form gave way to something magnificent, something enormous, a dragon of silver and gold with wings that blotted out the sun. Lily squealed with delight. Victor lowered himself so she could climb onto his back. One of the guards helped her up, securing her with straps that Emily hadn't noticed appearing. "Hold on tight!" Victor's voice echoed in all their minds. "Ready, ready!" Lily shouted. They launched into the sky. Emily watched her daughter soar away on the back of a dragon, laughing, screaming, and more alive than she had ever been. "She has no fear," Esmeralda observed, coming to stand beside her. "No," Emily agreed, "she never has. She gets it from you." Emily laughed. "I am terrified of everything. And yet, you helped a stranger in the rain. You faced down a man who threatened your child. You agreed to move your entire life to a realm of dragons." Esmeralda put an arm around her shoulders. "Courage is not the absence of fear, Emily. It is acting despite fear. And you are the bravest person I know." They watched Lily and Victor fly, two figures silhouetted against the setting sun, the Dragon King and the fearless little girl. "He likes her," Esmeralda said. "Lily is easy to like. He likes you too." Emily felt her cheeks flush. "I don't think. I'm 847 years old, dear. I know my grandson, and I know what I see when he looks at you." Emily didn't know how to respond to that, so she just watched and wondered, and felt that unfamiliar thing called hope grow a little stronger in her chest. 1 year later, Emily stood in her chambers in Stormscale Palace, looking at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. Her hair was longer now, styled in a way she never could have afforded before. Her clothes were made of fabric softer than anything she had ever touched. Her face had lost the constant worry lines that had marked it for so long. She looked happy. She looked healthy. She looked like someone who belonged in a palace. "Mom!" Lily came bursting through the door, her own dress swirling around her. "Granny Esme says it's almost time. Everyone is waiting." I'm coming." Emily turned from the mirror and took her daughter's hand. They walked through the corridors of the palace, past servants who bowed and guards who smiled. After a year, Emily was still not used to it. She suspected she never would be. The great hall was filled with dragons, hundreds of them, in their human forms, dressed in their finest clothes. They had come from all over the realm to witness this moment. At the front of the hall, Victor waited. He looked, Emily thought, nervous. The great dragon king of the north, who had faced armies and monsters and worse, looked nervous about what was about to happen. It made her love him even more. Yes, love. Somewhere in the past year, between the shared meals and the long conversations and the moments when he would play with Lily like she was his own daughter, Emily had fallen in love with him, and miracle of miracles, he loved her back. The ceremony was simple by dragon standards, elaborate by human ones. There were oaths and rituals, and the exchange of tokens that bound their families together forever, not just as protector and protected, not just as king and subject, as husband and wife. Emily Torres became Emily Stormscale that day. Lily became Lily Stormscale. They became part of the Dragon Royal family in truth as well as in name when Victor kissed her. The crowd cheered so loudly that the chandeliers shook. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too," she whispered back. And she did. She loved this impossible dragon king who had changed her life, who had saved her from Victor Sinclair and given her a home and loved her daughter as his own, who had proven that kindness, even in the darkest moments, could lead to extraordinary things. The celebration lasted for 3 days. There was food and music and dancing. There was Lily being carried around on Esmeralda's shoulders, both of them laughing like they had known each other forever. There was Emily, looking around at her new family, her new home, her new life, and marveling at how much had changed. A year ago, she had been a struggling single mother with 72 hours to save her home. Now she was the Dragon Queen of the North, all because she had stopped to help a stranger in the rain. On the last night of the celebration, Emily found Esmeralda alone on a balcony, looking out at the stars. "Should you be up this late?" Emily asked, coming to stand beside her. "I'm 848 now," Esmeralda smiled. "I think I can manage my own bedtime." "Happy birthday, by the way." Emily handed her a small package. "I made you something." Esmeralda unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a simple bracelet, woven from thread in the colors of the Stormscale crest. "Lily taught me," Emily said. "It's not much, but it's perfect." Esmeralda slipped the bracelet onto her wrist. "The finest treasure I own." They stood together in comfortable silence, grandmother and granddaughter-in-law, looking out at the dragon realm spread below them. "You changed my life," Emily said eventually. "No," Esmeralda shook her head. "You changed mine. I was attacked, lost, bleeding. You could have walked past. You should have walked past. Your own life was falling apart. You had every reason to ignore me. I couldn't. I know." Esmeralda turned to face her. "That's why you're here. That's why you're queen. Because when it would have been easy to walk away, you didn't. You never do." Emily felt tears on her cheeks. "I still don't understand why you chose me. Out of everyone in the world. Why me?" "Because kindness matters." Esmeralda's eyes gleamed in the starlight. Because compassion matters. Because the small choices we make when no one is watching define who we truly are. She reached out and cupped Emily's face in her hands. "You showed me who you are in that alley," she said. "A good person. A brave person. Someone worthy of being loved." Emily could not speak. She just hugged the old dragon, this ancient being who had become her grandmother, and let the tears flow. "Thank you," she finally managed, "for everything." "No, dear." Esmeralda held her tight. "Thank you." Victor found them there an hour later, both asleep on a bench. Emily's head on Esmeralda's shoulder. He stood for a moment, watching them, his grandmother, the woman who had raised him, who had taught him everything he knew, and his wife, the woman who had saved him, who had captured his heart without even trying, his family. Victor gathered them both up, carrying them to their chambers with the care that only a man deeply in love could manage. As he tucked Emily into bed, she stirred. "Victor, I am here. Is everyone okay?" "Everyone is perfect." He kissed her forehead. "Go back to sleep." Emily smiled and settled deeper into the pillows. "I love you," she murmured. "I love you too." He stayed until she was asleep, and then went to check on Lily. She was sprawled across her enormous bed. Mr. Snuggles clutched in her arms, dreaming dreams that probably involved flying unicorns, or maybe even dragons. Victor watched her for a moment. This child who had become his daughter in all the ways that mattered, who called him Papa now, when she remembered, and Dad when she forgot. He loved her fiercely. He loved both of them fiercely, and he had his grandmother to thank for that. If Esmeralda hadn't been struggling, hadn't been helped, hadn't come to love this family, none of this would have happened. He would still be the lonely guy who trusted no one. He would still be alone. But Esmeralda had found them, and she had brought them home. Sometimes, Victor thought, the universe rewarded those who gave without expecting anything in return. Sometimes, kindness really could change everything. He went to bed that night with a smile on his face and gratitude in his heart for his grandmother, who had taught him what family meant, for his wife, who had shown him what love could be, for his daughter, who had melted his frozen heart with nothing more than enthusiasm, and cookies, for the stranger in the rain who had become everything to him, and somewhere in the penthouse. Esmeralda woke just long enough to smile at the charm bracelet on her wrist. She had traveled the world for centuries, searching for proof that goodness still existed. She had finally found it, in a nurse who could not walk past someone in need, in a child who shared her last cookie without being asked, in a family that had nothing and gave everything. Esmeralda closed her eyes and slept, content in the know